Week in Cincinnati on 9 on your side.
Welcome back, everyone. Cincinnati neighborhoods have changed a lot over the years. Some have flourished. Some neighborhoods have disappeared altogether. No kidding. One of those neighborhoods is Kenyon-Barr. I'll show you a map of Kenyon-Barr. This is 1934. This was created by Conrad Kickert and his assistant Sadaf Khalil Zaire at the University of Cincinnati. Let's give you some perspective. Union Terminal. See it up in the left-hand corner? The large red block on the right, that's Music Hall. About 26,000 people lived in this area, and this is what that area looks like now. Yep, we know it as Queensgate. All those black marks, many of which were homes, they're gone. The entire community was erased from the West End to make way for industrial development. And now a new exhibit called Finding Kenyon-Barr is opening at the exhibit space at 1202 Linn Street. More than 2,600 buildings were destroyed when that area was razed. I'm happy to have with us now to talk about Kenyon-Barr, the exhibit, and that part of our local history, Hillary Copsey, a contributor to WCPO.com. She just wrote a big piece on this, and we thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I said it earlier in the show, I grew up in Cincinnati. I've never, though, heard of this until this week. Tell everyone what this is all about. Why did this happen?
Well, that's really, that's not an uncommon story. I think unless you lived there in what the community knew as just the West End, a lot of us didn't know about this. There's a UC grad student, Ann Delano Steinert, who had come upon these photos in the archive, and the Kenyon Bar, that was the name of the city plan for this neighborhood. They wanted to get rid of it to bring in industrial. It's mid-century, right? So they needed more industrial development.
Let me stop you there. Who was living in Kenyon-Barr at the time? Or West End, basically?
Right. So it was a primarily African-American community. A lot of low income. If you look through the Kenyon-Barr plan, you'll see that many of the buildings have been marked for code violations, but really it was a very vibrant community. But it was also located around interstates, and so planners saw it as an opportunity to bring in industry. So they went through, and these pictures, there's more than 3,200 pictures. They went through and meticulously documented every single building.
Who was they? The city?
City planners, right.
Wow. Did they know? Unbelievable they took that many photos.
So you can see really the vibrancy of the streetscape. You can see kids mugging for the camera. You can see men and women, chatting with their neighbors, and shopkeepers hanging out on stoops. And you could really recreate this whole neighborhood. And so the exhibit is there with all of these old pictures that luckily have been preserved at the Museum Center archives. But there's also pictures of that area today, and there's several panel discussions when people who lived there then and who are still living in the city now are coming to talk about their memories.
They really are. So what, I know you've talked to a few of them, so what are they saying about this? What it was like to be displaced?
Well, it was a very hard thing. Imagine not only your childhood home, but your church, your school, your neighbors, the streets you played on, the playground you ran on, all of those things, the shops you went to, all of those things are just gone. The one gentleman I spoke to, the only piece of his childhood left is a piece of a retaining wall. Really? Not even the whole retaining wall, a piece of it.
Just a portion. We probably walk by it all the time, have no idea that was something important to someone at some point.
Exactly. So, there's a lot of painful memories. Many of the people in the community ended up in maybe Avondale or some other, over the Rhine maybe. Some scattered, outside of the city. But there are still, it was 1950s, late 50s, early 60s when families moved out. So many of them are here and they have their families here.
How did they do that? How did they move all of these people? Did they move them specifically, or did they just say, you're out, get out?
Well, there were promises of housing assistance, some of which the people I talked to said that never came. Many families, saw the writing on the wall. They'd had the city planners come in and making these pictures and sharing the plans. So, when they had an opportunity to leave, they did.
And then we talked about this in the break. I cannot imagine this happening today. Could you?
Well, I think that's one of the questions that the exhibit raises, is how are development decisions being made, right? And who are the people in the communities when we're talking about new developments? Who are the people who are already there? What is the character of the community already? And how does that new development affect those things?
And really, we want to preserve our neighborhoods, don't we?
I think that if you talk to people in the neighborhoods, yes, absolutely. You know, as in reporting this story and in other stories I've reported recently, that's what any community is important to the people who are living there, right? Regardless of the income level, whether the buildings are meeting code or not, whatever, it doesn't matter. If you're living in that community and you are connected to your neighborhood and you are shopping there and going to church there and going to school there, that community matters.
What a fascinating look at a time in Cincinnati that I just don't understand. I don't recall in any way, shape, or form, of course. Thank you so much for bringing it to light. We appreciate that. And as we mentioned, the Finding Kenyon-Barr exhibit is at the exhibit space at 1202 Linn Street. You can see it from noon until 4 p.m. on Sundays, from 3 till 7 on Tuesdays, and 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Fridays through January 2nd. Now, after that, the exhibit will travel throughout the region, so check it out.